Introduction. Welcome to the Stoic journey. What if I told you that silence can be your greatest weapon, that the very act of pulling back and saying nothing can create a ripple effect that changes everything? The truth is, most men underestimate the power of walking away, not as an act of defeat, but as a calculated move. When you stop talking to a woman, her response speaks louder than her words ever could. Now, let's be real. Most men are terrified of the idea of going silent. They think it means losing control or coming across as weak. But here's the hard truth: chasing, pleading, or trying to explain yourself only weakens your position. Women aren't drawn to men who constantly seek validation. They're drawn to men who know their worth, even in the face of rejection. The moment you stop engaging, something shifts in the dynamic. A woman will notice even if she pretends she doesn't. Her thoughts will spiral. Why isn't he calling? Did he lose interest? Is he seeing someone else? Suddenly the roles reverse. The man she once felt secure, ignoring, becomes the one she can't stop thinking about. But here's where it gets interesting. Not every woman reacts the same way. When you go silent, some will chase you relentlessly, while others will test your boundaries to regain control. And then there are those who won't care at all. Those are the women who never truly valued you to begin with. Recognizing these differences is the key to understanding whether she's worth your energy or just a distraction. In this video, we're diving deep into the psychology behind a woman's reaction to your silence. You'll learn the subtle signs she's feeling, your absence, the reasons behind her behavior, and how to leverage this knowledge to maintain your power. So if you've ever found yourself lost in the cycle of chasing someone who pulls away, this is your wake-up call. Silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new game, one where you finally take control. She starts chasing you for validation. She starts chasing you for validation. The moment you stop talking to a woman, something intriguing happens. She starts to question herself. This is especially true if she's used to you always being available, always texting first, or always trying to fix things. When there's conflict, your silence becomes deafening to her, and suddenly the attention she once took for granted feels like something she can no longer live without. Why does this happen? It's simple. Human psychology thrives on validation. When you constantly provide attention and reassurance, she feels secure in your presence, almost like it's guaranteed. But when you take that away, you introduce an element of uncertainty. Women, just like anyone else, crave certainty. They want to feel valued, desired, and admired. So when you step back, she starts to feel the absence of your validation, and this absence triggers a chase. At first it might seem subtle. She may suddenly reply faster to your social media posts, laugh a little too hard at your jokes, or casually bring up inside jokes you both share. But as time goes on, her actions may become more direct. She might reach out to ask why you've gone quiet, or bring up something seemingly random just to get your attention. These small actions are her way of seeking the validation that your silence has denied her. Here's the key. This isn't just about her missing your texts or calls. It's about her needing to know that she still matters to you. Validation for many women is like a mirror. It reflects their value in someone else's eyes. When you stop giving her that reflection, she starts chasing it. Imagine this scenario. A man is dating a woman who's used to him calling every evening to check in, but one day he doesn't call. Instead, he goes radio silent, focusing on himself and not reaching out. At first, she thinks he must be busy, but by the second or third day, she starts to feel uneasy. Questions creep in. Why isn't he calling? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Suddenly, she's the one texting him, asking if everything is okay, or finding excuses to reconnect. This shift is powerful because it rebalances the dynamic. When she starts chasing, it shows that your absence has created a void that she's desperate to fill. But here's the secret. You don't fill it for her. You maintain your silence and let her actions reveal her intentions. This doesn't mean being manipulative or cold. It means understanding the power of space and giving her the opportunity to reflect on what your presence actually means to her. And when she chases you, it's not just about regaining validation. It's about realizing that she values you more than she thought. 2. She tests your boundaries to regain control. Boundaries to regain control when you stop talking to a woman. One of the first things she might do is test your boundaries. This is not always a conscious act. It's often driven by a desire to regain the control. She feels she's lost. Think of it like this: by going silent, you've disrupted the balance she's grown comfortable with. Suddenly she's unsure of where she stands with you. And this uncertainty can make her act in ways you might not expect. Boundary testing often comes subtle forms. At first she might send vague or teasing messages like, "I guess you're too busy for me now," or "Wow, someone's gone quiet." These comments are designed to provoke a reaction and see if you'll fall back into your old patterns of chasing her. The goal is simple: to get you to break your silence and reassure her that she's still in control. If these softer attempts don't work, her tactics might escalate. She could try to make you jealous by mentioning other men in her life or posting photos with cryptic captions on social media. This is her way of saying, "Look at me, I'm still desirable, and you're missing out." But here's the trick. None of this is about the other men or the pictures. It's about seeing if you'll crack under the pressure and reach out to her. For example, let's say you've been dating a woman who's used to you always responding within minutes of her texts, but now you've decided to step back and focus on yourself. At first, she sends a playful, "Did you lose your phone?" message when you don't reply immediately. She follows up with something more pointed like, "Guess I'll just hang out with someone who actually has time for me." This is where most men make a mistake. They fall into the trap. They respond defensively or try to explain themselves, thinking it will fix things. But in reality, responding only confirms that her boundary test worked, and she's still in control. Instead, you need to hold your ground when you don't react to her provocations. It forces her to confront her own behavior. She begins to realize that testing your boundaries won't get the reaction she's looking for. And in this moment, she either respects your newfound independence or reveals that her intentions were never genuine. The lesson here is simple. When a woman tests your boundaries, it's not a sign of strength, it's a sign of insecurity. By staying calm, composed, and unbothered, you show her that you're a man who values himself enough not to play games. And in the end, this is what earns real respect. 3. She pretends. She pretends not to care, but secretly overthinks not to care, but secretly overthinks. One of the most common and frustrating reactions you'll see when you stop talking to a woman is the facade of indifference. She'll act like she doesn't care, like your silence doesn't bother her, but deep down she's overthinking everything. It's almost like she's trying to convince herself that your absence doesn't mean anything, when in reality it's the only thing on her mind. This is a defense mechanism, plain and simple. Women don't like to appear vulnerable, especially when they feel like they might be the one losing control. So instead of showing how much your silence is affecting her, she'll put on a brave face. She might act distant or make it seem like she's fine without you. But the truth is, she's doing exactly what you're doing, thinking about what's really going on and why you pulled away. But here's where it gets interesting. While she's pretending not to care, she's actually hyper-aware of everything you do, every post you share, every time she sees you out with someone else. Or even if you just happen to leave her on read for a few hours, she'll analyze it. She might start reading into things that really don't matter at all, overthinking every little detail. This constant overthinking is a sign that your silence is having the desired effect. You've given her space to reflect. But in the process, she's been flooded with questions. Why hasn't he called? Did he meet someone new? Is he really losing interest, or is he just testing me? These thoughts, though rarely voiced, consume her mind and emotions. The reason she acts like she doesn't care is simple. Vulnerability is often seen as weakness, and many women are conditioned to hide it. They don't want to seem desperate or clingy, so instead they mask their true feelings. But here's the thing, most of them can't hide it for long. The more she tries to act like she's unaffected, the more obvious it becomes that she's not. She's thinking about you a lot. The silence you've created has turned her world upside down, and she's desperately trying to make sense of it. It's like a puzzle she can't quite put together, and every time she tries to rationalize your behavior, she ends up coming up with even more questions. This is one of the most powerful effects of going silent. You don't have to say anything or make big gestures. Your absence does the work for you. She might act aloof, or she might even try to make you think she's totally fine without you. But in the end, she's just playing the same game, trying to hold it together, while secretly wondering what you're thinking and feeling. It's an emotional battle, one that most men don't even see. But by holding your ground and staying silent, you force her to confront her own feelings. She'll overthink, she'll second guess, and in the end she'll start asking herself the questions that will make her reach out to you, despite her best efforts to seem unaffected. She seeks validation from someone else, seeks validation from someone else. Let's face it, when you stop talking to a woman, there's a chance she might seek validation elsewhere. This isn't always about replacing you or moving on. Sometimes it's about soothing the bruised ego that silence can create. But here's the hard truth. If you've put yourself in a position where he feels the need to look for attention from someone else, you might want to question the dynamics of the connection in the first place. Now, before you get defensive, let's address something important. Many men make the mistake of assuming that going silent is some magic tactic that will always work. But here's the reality. If your silence comes across as immature, inconsistent, or simply manipulative, it's no surprise she might seek comfort elsewhere. Women don't want to feel like they're in a game of emotional tug-of-war. If you've been stringing her along, failing to provide clarity, or constantly disappearing, only to reappear when it suits you, she's not the problem. You are. Silence, when used intentionally, can create space for reflection and communication. But when it's overused or wielded as a weapon, it can drive a wedge between you and push her straight into the arms of someone who knows how to value her properly. This isn't about blaming men entirely, it's about accountability. If you're not offering security, consistency, or mutual respect, what do you expect her to do? Sit around waiting indefinitely for breadcrumbs? Wake up on the flip side. If you've been solid, clear, and intentional, yet she still seeks validation elsewhere, that's on her. Some people are addicted to attention, and they'll chase it wherever they can find it. This kind of behavior is a red flag. Plain and simple, a woman who is quick to seek out validation from another person, the moment you stop talking, isn't someone you want to invest your energy into. So here's the advice. Don't focus solely on her reaction. Focus on your actions too. Be honest with yourself. Are you using silence to manipulate her, or are you creating space to build something meaningful? If it's the latter, her reaction will tell you everything you need to know about her character and emotional maturity. But don't kid yourself if she runs straight to someone else for validation. Take it as a wake-up call, not just about her, but also about the kind of relationship you're choosing, because at the end of the day, you deserve someone who values you for who you are, not someone who needs constant attention to feel worthy. Keep your standards high, and remember, relationships are a two-way street. Make sure you're walking in the right. She disappears completely. The truth about indifference. Direction 5. She disappears completely. The truth about indifference. When you stop talking to a woman, there's a chance she might take a completely different route. She disappears entirely. No texts, no calls, no subtle attempts to get your attention. It's like she vanishes into thin air, leaving you wondering if she even cared in the first place. This reaction is often misunderstood. On the surface, it might look like she's indifferent or unaffected, but the reality is far more complex when a woman disappears after you've gone silent. It's usually one of two things. She's either genuinely done or she's protecting herself. If she's genuinely done, it means she had already emotionally checked out before you stopped talking to her. Your silence didn't create the distance, it revealed it. In this case, she's likely been waiting for the opportunity to move on, and your lack of communication just gave her the green light. This can be a tough pill to swallow, but it's an important reality to face. A woman who disappears because she's done, wasn't deeply invested to begin with, and in the long run, that's not someone you want to chase. But more often than not, her disappearing act isn't about being done. It's about regaining control. When a woman feels like she's losing power in a dynamic, her instinct might be to withdraw entirely. Think of it as a form of emotional self-preservation. Instead of chasing you or showing vulnerability, she removes herself from the equation entirely, hoping to regain some sense of control over the situation. This reaction can be deeply frustrating for men because it feels like you're being ignored or discarded. But here's the thing. Silence in response to silence isn't indifference, it's strategy. She's likely pulling back to see if you'll break first. If you reach out to her, it confirms that her disappearing act worked, but if you don't, it forces her to confront the reality of losing you. It's important to understand that this reaction doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't care. In fact, it often means the opposite. When someone goes silent, it's usually because they're processing their emotions internally. She's likely weighing her options, wondering if staying quiet will protect her pride or if reaching out will give her clarity. In these situations, patience is your greatest asset. Resist the urge to chase her or try to fix things. If her disappearance is a test, your lack of reaction will show her that you're not easily manipulated. And if her silence is genuine indifference, your restraint will save you the energy of investing in someone who isn't fully invested in you. In the end, the truth about indifference is this. It's rarely as simple as it seems, whether she disappears to protect herself or to test you. Your best move is to remain composed. Let her actions reveal her true intentions, and trust that the right people will value your presence without needing to manipulate you into proving it. Here's the shocking truth, that conclusion. No one likes to admit if you're constantly chasing after a woman who seeks validation from others. You're wasting your time. It's as simple as that. No matter how much you invest emotionally, if she's looking for attention from someone else, the moment you pull away, it's not about you. It's about her own insecurities. Don't kid yourself into thinking that playing games with silence will make her chase you if she's not willing to invest in the relationship. Equally, don't settle for being a backup option. Now, I know this might sting a bit, especially if you've been caught up in emotional drama. But here's the thing. Men need to wake up. Stop trying to be someone's emotional roller coaster. The real power in any relationship comes from standing your ground and knowing your worth. If she can't appreciate that, let her go. So what's been your experience when a woman sought validation from someone else? Did you fall for it, or did you realize your worth? Drop your stories in the comments below. I'd love to connect and discuss how you handled it. Let's share and learn together.